The morning of July 15th, 2023, on Lake Travis, Texas, was a study in tranquility. A soft, pearlescent fog clung to the surface of the water, muting the world to shades of gray and blue. For Ray Harmon, a 62-year-old retired postal worker whose life had settled into the gentle rhythm of early mornings and quiet fishing, it was perfect. He'd been on the water since before first light, the only sounds the gentle lapping against his small aluminum boat and the occasional cry of a distant heron. He cast his line near a secluded cove, a spot he favored for its depth and the large bass it often yielded. On this particular cast, however, his line didn't snag with the lively, fighting tug of a fish. It was a dead weight, a heavy, unmoving resistance. He tugged, thinking it was a submerged log or a tangle of weeds. But as he reeled in, the resistance felt different, a dense, unwieldy mass. He pulled harder, the line straining. Slowly, something emerged from the deep, tea-colored water. It was a bundle, wrapped in what had once been an expensive, patterned silk, now stained and waterlogged. The fabric was torn in one corner. As Ray pulled the bundle closer, the first weak rays of the sun finally broke through the mist, striking the water around his boat. The light caught on something within the torn silk. Something pale and waxy. A human hand. And wrapped around the slender wrist. A diamond tennis bracelet, its stones flashing with a grotesque and brilliant fire in the morning sun. Ray's own hands, weathered and steady from a lifetime of work, began to tremble uncontrollably. He fumbled for his phone, his mind refusing to process what his eyes so clearly saw. What he had pulled from the serene depths of Lake Travis that morning was not just a body, it was the horrifying final paragraph in a story of ambition, betrayal, and a cold-blooded calculation that would expose a killer hiding in the last place anyone would ever think to look. Hey everyone, and a special welcome to my viewers across the USA. This is The Killer Next Door. I'm your host. On this channel, we dedicate ourselves to pulling back the curtain on the darkest parts of the human psyche, to proving that the most terrifying monsters are not the ones that haunt our nightmares, but the ones who sit across from us at the dinner table. They are protected by a shield of our own making, a shield of trust, of familiarity, of the comforting, perfectly crafted image of normalcy they present to the world. Before we descend into the chilling details of a case that will fundamentally challenge everything you believe about marriage, love, and the people you think you know best, I want to know who is joining me on this difficult journey today. This story, the story of Jessica Wilson, is not an abstract tragedy. It becomes profoundly personal when you truly internalize the horrifying fact that the man who ended her life was the same man who, just years before, had stood before her family and friends, placed a ring on her finger, and vowed to love and protect her, till death do they part. So, if you're watching from anywhere in the United States, from a bustling city apartment to a quiet suburban home, I want you to pause for a moment and drop a comment right now. Tell me your name and your city. I read every single one. I want to know who is in this community of the vigilant. And in our next video, I'll be giving a shout out to some of you. Let's build this network of truth seekers, the people who are not afraid to question the picture-perfect surface. Now, if you have ever held the core belief that the bond of marriage is a sacred, unbreakable fortress, that the person you share your life with, your secrets with, your bed with, would never be capable of truly, irrevocably harming you, then the story of Jessica and Tyler Wilson will shatter that illusion into a million jagged pieces. This is not merely a true crime case, it is a harrowing, deep-dive psychological profile of possessive love, of resentment that festered in the dark like a cancer, and of the ultimate, cold-blooded business decision to convert a living, breathing wife into a multi-million-dollar payday. To truly comprehend the profound tragedy of Jessica Wilson's end, we must first understand her beginning. We must travel to the sun-scorched, oil-rich plains of Midland, Texas. This is a landscape of stark contrasts, vast, open skies that promise infinite possibility, yet a social landscape that can feel as confined and predetermined as the fenced-off oil derricks that punctuate the horizon. Here, identity is often tied to family name, to Friday night football under the blazing stadium lights, and to the enduring, unspoken rule that you stick with your own. Jessica Marie Wilson was born into this world, the daughter of a long-haul truck driver and a hairdresser who worked out of a small salon in a strip mall. From her earliest days, Jessica possessed a luminous quality, an incandescent energy that seemed too vibrant, too large for her small-town surroundings. She was not just pretty, she was captivating, with an ambitious fire in her eyes that set her apart. While other girls her age were content with the local gossip and weekend plans, Jessica was a dreamer on a mission. Her childhood bedroom was a testament to this. The walls were not adorned with posters of pop stars, but with meticulously crafted vision boards. They were collages of a future she was determined to claim, pages torn from Vogue and Harper's Bazaar showcasing haute couture, printed images of Dubai's impossible skyline, maps of Europe with routes highlighted in marker, and quotes about success and world travel. Her mother, in a tearful interview, recalled a specific, haunting memory. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. A documentary about Dubai was on the television, all those shiny buildings and fancy cars. She pointed a tiny finger at the screen and said, "With this absolute, unshakable certainty, I'm going to live there someday, Mama." We all just smiled, you know? We thought it was adorable. A child's big dream. How could we have known? Her voice breaks. How could we have ever conceived that her ambition, the very thing we loved and admired most about her, would be the very thing that placed her directly in the crosshairs of pure evil? Tyler Wilson, in almost every conceivable way, was Jessica's polar opposite. Where she was fire and ambition, he was earth and stability. The star quarterback of the Midland High Bulldogs, Tyler was a local hero, a young man celebrated for his grounded nature, his quiet practicality, and his deep, unshakable roots in the community. His dreams were not of distant skylines but of a steady job in the oil fields, a family, a well-kept home on a quiet street in the town where he was born and raised. He was the kind of son-in-law parents prayed for, hard-working, respectful, dependable, a man who represented safety and certainty. Their romance unfolded like a classic, small-town fairy tale, a narrative so perfect it felt almost preordained. The beautiful, ambitious pageant queen and the strong, dependable football star. Theirs was a story written in the glow of Friday night stadium lights, in the rustle of corsages at prom, in whispered promises of forever, under the immense, star-dusted Texas sky. When they married in a simple ceremony just after Jessica's high school graduation, it felt to everyone who knew them like the natural, happy, and final chapter of their love story. They purchased a modest, 3-bedroom ranch house on the outskirts of town, its white paint already beginning to peel under the relentless sun. They furnished it piece by piece from big-box discount stores, each item a symbol of their shared future. To the outside world, they were the golden couple, the embodiment of a local success story. But even the most carefully polished gold is susceptible to hairline fractures when placed under sustained, immense pressure. The first and most obvious pressure was economic. The oil industry, the lifeblood of Midland, is notoriously cyclical, a roller coaster of boom and devastating bust. In 2021, the bottom fell out. Tyler's hours were slashed, and then his pay followed. The financial strain seeped into their home like a poisonous gas, invisible but suffocating. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter, and conversations that once were about dreams turned into tense negotiations about necessities. Jessica, with her vast, hungry ambitions, grew visibly restless within the confines of their newly constrained life. Tyler, ever the pragmatist, met her anxiety with a steady, if weary refrain. Just hang on, darlin'. Things will turn around. They always do. But Jessica was not wired for waiting. She was a woman of action, and she lived by a mantra she'd adopted as her own. God helps those who help themselves. So, when an online listing for a receptionist position at Heartland Global Investments in Austin appeared, a city that felt as culturally and spiritually distant from Midland as another planet, Jessica seized it without hesitation. The plan, as they agreed through gritted teeth, was temporary, a necessary evil. Jessica would work in Austin during the week, staying in a cramped, cheap studio apartment shared with two other girls, and she would return to Midland every weekend. Together, they would save every spare penny and weather the storm as a team. But Austin did not just offer Jessica a job, it offered her an escape hatch and a brand new identity. Her transformation was swift, profound, and meticulously documented on her social media feeds. The casual, smiling selfies taken in Midland's familiar diners vanished, replaced by carefully angled, filtered photos in minimalist Austin coffee shops and rooftop bars. Her wardrobe underwent a dramatic evolution, shifting from comfortable, affordable mall brands to a thrift store chic aesthetic that cleverly mimicked high-fashion looks. Even the distinctive, melodic Texas twang that had colored her speech since childhood began to soften, sanded down into a more neutral, professional, and placeless accent. On the surface, for the digital world, their life together still appeared to be a picture of marital bliss. Weekend photos showed them smiling brightly at family barbecues or posing in their Sunday best outside church, the captions filled with hollow hashtags like #blessed and #happily ever after. But for those watching closely, the cracks were becoming impossible to ignore. Tyler began to find excuses to decline invitations to visit her in Austin, claiming pressing work obligations back in Midland. Jessica's weekend trips home became less and less frequent, her excuses for staying in the city growing increasingly vague and flimsy. Their nightly phone calls, which had once been lengthy, intimate rituals filled with laughter and shared dreams, withered into brief, perfunctory check-ins, the silences between them growing heavier and more loaded with each passing week. Her Austin roommate, Kaylee, provided a poignant insight into this period. "It was like watching someone live a double life," Kaylee recalled. "There was Midland Jessica, who would come home and talk about maybe starting a family someday and seemed, if not happy, then at least settled, resigned. Then there was Austin Jessica, who was hungry, restless. She'd spend her entire paycheck on a single designer knockoff handbag and talk for hours about traveling the world, about making real money, about meeting people who mattered. You could see the two versions of her straining against each other, and it was only a matter of time before one of them broke. We all saw it coming, we just didn't know how bad the crash would be. The collision course was set, its trajectory locked in. And the catalyst, the human wrecking ball, would arrive in the form of a man who represented everything Tyler Wilson was not, and everything Jessica Wilson thought she wanted. The catalyst for the final, catastrophic unraveling of Jessica and Tyler's marriage was a man of almost unimaginable wealth, power, and global influence. He didn't just enter Jessica's life, he descended upon it like a sovereign visiting a provincial outpost, trailing an aura of exotic power and limitless possibility. Sheikh Hassan Al-Farouk was the 35-year-old heir to a sprawling, global energy empire. A graduate of Harvard Business School, fluent in 4 languages, with palatial residences scattered across 4 continents, he was the living, breathing embodiment of the international, jet-set existence that Jessica had only ever curated on her vision boards. His arrival at the sleek, modern Austin offices of Heartland Global Investments was not a mere appointment, it was an event that altered the atmosphere of the entire floor. Senior executives emerged from their corner offices, their postures straightening. Assistants nervously smoothed their skirts. The very air seemed to grow thin, charged with a new and potent energy. Security footage from that day, later pored over by investigators, captured a moment that would prove fatal for Jessica. It showed Hassan, a man known for his brisk, no-nonsense efficiency, pausing at the reception desk for a conversation that stretched on for several minutes longer than protocol or politeness demanded. He was seen leaning slightly over the desk, his body language attentive, asking about her accent, remarking on her poise and presentation. For Jessica, in that moment, it must have felt like the opening scene of a Hollywood romance. For Hassan, it was likely the beginning of a well-practiced and highly effective ritual of seduction. Her supervisor, Diane Morales, later recounted her growing unease. "We assigned her to his visit because she was, without a doubt, our best front-facing staff. She was bright, incredibly presentable. And she'd already done all the background research on him without being asked. But when the first gift arrived at the office a few days after he left, a bottle of Clive Christian perfume with a retail value of over $500, I pulled her aside. I told her it was inappropriate, that it crossed the professional line, and that she should return it. But Jessica, she was already mesmerized. She insisted it was just a cultural difference, that in the Middle East, such business gifts were commonplace, and that refusing would be a grave insult to a hugely important client. I see now, with devastating clarity, that she wasn't just making excuses for him, she was already making excuses for herself. For the path she knew she was choosing. The bottle of perfume was merely the opening gambit in a sophisticated campaign of seduction. It was followed in swift succession by a Prada handbag, a delicate Hermes silk scarf, and a pair of devastatingly red-soled Christian Louboutin heels. Each lavish gift was another brick being laid in the gilded cage he was meticulously constructing around her. They always arrived with a handwritten note on heavy, cream-colored cardstock, the language maintaining a thin, deniable veneer of professional appreciation. For the assistant with impeccable taste, a token of gratitude for your exceptional assistance. But the subtext, the unspoken promise and price, was screamingly clear to both of them. Jessica's behavior during this time became increasingly secretive and compartmentalized. She purchased a second, secret mobile phone that Tyler knew nothing about. She created a new, private email address and downloaded encrypted messaging apps that left no digital trace. She told Tyler she was working late or attending networking events, but those evenings were increasingly spent on long, intimate video calls with Hassan, conversations that would begin with the dry details of international business and inevitably drift into the deep waters of personal fantasy and desire. He painted vivid, intoxicating word pictures of his life in Dubai, the private jets waiting on the tarmac, the pristine, private beaches, the tax-free income, the unassailable social status. He showed her real-time photos and videos from his penthouse apartment, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing a breathtaking panorama of the Persian Gulf. Perhaps the most psychologically potent and manipulative thing he said to her, a line she would later repeat to her roommate with awe, was this: "People like us understand true ambition, Jessica. We recognize that a life of comfort is the greatest enemy of a life of greatness." Did you catch the specific, insidious language there? Not people like me, but people like us. In that one brilliantly crafted phrase, he validated her deepest, most secret desires, anointed her as his equal, and effectively separated her from the world and the husband she had come from. He was rewriting her identity, and she was an eager participant. The formal job offer, when it came, was the point of no return, the final, glittering key to the cage. It was for a position as his personal and cultural liaison, based in Dubai. The role was deliberately vague, involving facilitating American business partnerships and representing his interests at social functions. The salary, however, was starkly, undeniably concrete, $175,000 per year, plus a fully furnished luxury apartment in the prestigious Marina District. A private car and driver, and all living expenses covered. "This isn't just a job offer, Jessica," Hassan told her, watching her reaction with the cool assessment of a collector acquiring a prized artifact. "This is your opportunity to finally, fully become the person you were always meant to be." Jessica spent the following week in a state of agonized turmoil, seeking counsel from friends who offered wildly divided opinions. Her new Austin circle, dazzled by the opportunity, urged her, "You'd be absolutely insane to say no to this." Meanwhile, her childhood friends from Midland expressed deep, moral concern. "It's just not right, Jess," her lifelong friend Amber pleaded during a late-night phone call. "What about your marriage? What about the vows you made to Tyler? This doesn't just feel like a job, it feels like you're leaving your entire life behind." Jessica, trying to convince herself as much as Amber, argued, "Tyler and I can make it work. Lots of couples do long distance. And think of the money. In a year or two, this could set us up for life. He could quit the oil fields. We could have everything we ever talked about." But in the deepest, most honest part of her soul, Jessica knew the choice wasn't about money or career advancement. It was a fundamental choice of identity. Did she want to remain the dutiful, small-town wife in Midland, or did she want to transform into the sophisticated, international businesswoman in Dubai? The fantasy, polished and perfect, was winning. The following weekend, she made the tense drive back to Midland, an ultimatum burning in her pocket, disguised as a compromise. Over a silent dinner at their familiar kitchen table, she laid it out. "We need to move to Austin. Permanently. I've been offered a promotion. It's a huge opportunity, but it requires me to be there full-time. We could start fresh there, together." Tyler's reaction was exactly what she had predicted, and perhaps, on some level, what she had hoped for. He couldn't leave Midland. His job, his aging parents, his entire support system, his very identity, it was all rooted in that specific, dusty Texas soil. The oil fields were finally showing faint signs of recovery. His father's health was declining. Their house was nearly paid off. Moving to Austin meant starting over from absolute zero, becoming a stranger in a city that had already changed his wife in ways he didn't understand. The conversation quickly spiraled into a vicious argument. Years of unspoken resentments and unvoiced disappointments flooding to the surface, toxic and unstoppable. "This isn't about the damn promotion, and we both know it," Tyler finally shouted, his voice cracking with a mixture of rage and pain. "This is about him, isn't it? The rich guy from Dubai. The one who buys you things." Jessica's denial was weak, lacking all conviction. The fight escalated, words becoming weapons, each one carefully aimed at the most vulnerable, secret parts of the other. Tyler accused her of abandoning their values, their life, for a shallow fantasy of money and excitement. Jessica retaliated, her voice sharp with contempt, accusing him of being content with mediocrity. Of being a small man with small dreams who was determined to hold her back. As she stormed into their bedroom to pack an overnight bag, Tyler stood in the doorway of their home, his face a mask of betrayal and fury. "If you walk out that door right now," he yelled, his voice echoing in the quiet street, "don't you ever expect to come back. This is it, Jessica. You hear me? This is it." Jessica paused on the threshold, the screen door between them. She turned, tears of anger and grief streaming down her face. "Maybe," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I don't want to come back." As Jessica drove through the oppressive darkness back to Austin, the finality of her words hanging in the air, she composed a message to Hassan on her secret phone, formally accepting his offer. She was all in. What she could not possibly have known, what her mind could never have conceived, was that Tyler's threat was not the raw, emotional outburst of a heartbroken man. It was a promise. A vow. And in the deafening quiet of that now half-empty house, surrounded by the ghosts of their shared life, a sinister and meticulously detailed plan began to fully crystallize in Tyler Wilson's mind. Grief was already transforming into something colder, harder, and infinitely more dangerous. Jessica's new life in Dubai was a dizzying, disorienting whirlwind of unimaginable luxury, a stark contrast to the life she had left behind. She was installed in a sprawling, three-bedroom apartment in the iconic Princess Tower, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking, panoramic view of the artificial Palm Jumeirah and the shimmering Persian Gulf beyond. The apartment was a showroom of opulence, marble floors, gold-plated fixtures, furniture that felt more like art. A walk-in closet awaited her, already stocked with a full wardrobe of authentic designer clothing, Chanel, Gucci, Dior, each piece in her exact size. A soft-spoken Filipino housekeeper named Marisol had been hired to cater to her every need. In her journal, later recovered from her laptop, she wrote of her first morning. "I woke up and for a full minute, I genuinely believed I was still dreaming. I walked out onto the balcony in a set of silk pajamas that probably cost more than my entire wedding dress, watched the sun rise over the water, and I thought, this is it. This is who I was always meant to be." In those initial weeks, Hassan was the perfect, charming host. He arranged for a personal driver to give her a grand tour of the city, the vertigo-inducing summit of the Burj Khalifa, the overwhelming consumer paradise of the Dubai Mall, the fragrant, chaotic alleyways of the gold and spice souks. He introduced her to his circle of friends, a carefully curated collection of wealthy expatriates, minor royalty from neighboring emirates, and effortlessly beautiful international models and influencers who drifted through the city's exclusive social scene. By day, Jessica would sit in on high-level business meetings, playing the part of his American consultant. By night, they dined at restaurants where tables were booked months in advance, sipped vintage champagne on private, pristine beaches, and eventually, she began sharing Hassan's even more luxurious penthouse apartment. Her social media transformation was immediate and dramatic. Her Instagram follower count exploded from a few hundred friends and family to over 50,000 in a matter of weeks. Every post was a carefully composed advertisement for her new life, a stunning sunset from the deck of a private yacht, a smiling selfie during a helicopter tour over the city, a glamorous shot from a desert safari in a custom-fitted Range Rover. She never explicitly mentioned Hassan or detailed the source of her sudden wealth, referring only to an amazing career opportunity abroad and incredible new friends. But the comments section began to fill not just with admiration and envy, but with pointed, uncomfortable questions from her old life. "Where are you getting the money for all this?" asked one high school friend. "What exactly is your job?" questioned another. More directly, a neighbor from Midland wrote, "Does Tyler know where you are?" Jessica systematically deleted these comments, but she could not contain the ripples of suspicion and concern spreading through her Texas social circles. Eventually, inevitably, Tyler saw the posts. Bank statements began arriving at their Midland home showing credit card charges from Dubai duty-free shops. The geotags on her photos, even when she tried to hide them, betrayed her location. The flimsy alibi about staying with her sister collapsed completely when a desperate Tyler finally called Maria directly. His reactions cycled through the predictable, painful stages of betrayal: first, confusion and disbelief, then a burning, impotent rage, and finally, a hollow, pleading desperation. He called her American number incessantly. It now went straight to a disconnected voicemail. Her new Dubai number blocked his calls after the third attempt. He sent a torrent of emails that evolved from frantic, to threatening, to utterly broken. He contacted everyone he could think of: her friends, her former coworkers, even the American consulate in Dubai. But each effort met a wall of silence, evasion, or bureaucratic stonewalling. His final email, sent through 5 different accounts in a desperate hope one would get through, read, "Jessica, please. Just tell me you're alive. Whatever happened between us, whatever you've done, I deserve to know that my wife is okay." Jessica saw these messages. She even showed some of the more aggressive ones to Hassan, who dismissed Tyler as pathetic and provincial, a relic of a life she had wisely outgrown. She drafted responses several times, her finger hovering over the send button, but she never followed through. To acknowledge Tyler was to acknowledge her own betrayal, her abandonment of her vows. Her conscious embrace of a lifestyle funded by a relationship she still, even to herself, hesitated to clearly define. While Jessica was busy trying to outrun her past, the first cracks began to appear in her glittering future. Hassan's charming, attentive facade began to erode, revealing something more controlling, more possessive lurking beneath. He started questioning her when she spent an afternoon out shopping without him. He would casually scroll through her phone while she slept, a violation she initially dismissed as a cultural quirk. His temper, which had been so carefully concealed during their courtship in Austin, began to surface over seemingly minor infractions, a dinner order she changed at the last moment, a business meeting she was 5 minutes late for, a conversation with another man at a party that he deemed too familiar. He needs to control everything, Jessica confessed to her former roommate Kaylee in a rare, encrypted message. It was exciting at first, you know? How decisive he is. How he just takes charge. Now it just feels suffocating. I feel like I can't breathe without his permission. But the controlling behavior was merely the warning tremor. The true earthquake came about 8 weeks into her Dubai adventure. While using Hassan's laptop to check her own email, a notification popped up from someone named Sophia. A prickle of suspicion overrode her sense of privacy. She clicked. The thread revealed intimate, flirtatious messages and explicit photos exchanged as recently as the previous day. A cold dread settled in her stomach. A quick, frantic search of his message history revealed not just Sophia, but an Alessandra in Milan, a Natalie in London, and a Yora in Beirut. All were young, beautiful women, all living in different global cities, and all, judging by their messages, operating under the belief that they had an exclusive, special relationship with Sheikh Hassan al-Farouk. He has us stationed like outposts of his empire. Jessica wrote bitterly in her private journal that night, the entry stained with tears. A different woman in every port, each of us kept in a gilded cage, mistaking luxury for love, each one thinking she's the exception. I was such a fool. The confrontation happened during a private dinner at Hassan's penthouse. Jessica, fueled by a potent cocktail of betrayal, humiliation, and rage, presented him with the evidence she had gathered. She had expected denial, perhaps a cascade of apologetic excuses, or even a complex explanation about cultural differences and relationship expectations. Instead, Hassan's reaction was a masterclass in cold, detached dismissal. He took a slow sip of his wine. Barely glancing at the screen she shoved toward him. "I never promised you exclusivity, Jessica," he said, his voice utterly calm. "You assumed that based on your own rather provincial, Western romantic notions. I have given you a life that most women on this planet would literally kill for. A life you clearly wanted badly enough to walk away from your own husband. If you find yourself unhappy with the arrangement, you are, of course, free to leave at any time. The door is right there. You can go back to your oilfield husband and your little life in Midland." The sheer, icy contempt in his voice was a physical blow. In a moment of pure, unthinking melodrama that she would later come to deeply regret, Jessica threw the contents of her wine glass directly into his face. The dark red liquid dripped from his chin onto his immaculate white shirt. Without another word, she turned and fled back to her own apartment. Over the next 3 agonizing days, she assessed the ruins of her fantasy. Her savings were negligible. The generous salary Hassan had promised had materialized only as irregular, lavish gifts of cash and jewelry, not a dependable, traceable income. Her position as a cultural liaison existed solely at his whim. Her visa was sponsored by his company. She was a bird in a golden cage, and the door had been opened only to reveal a terrifying drop. Her thoughts inevitably turned to Tyler, to his predictable, steady presence, to the simple, uncomplicated love he had always offered her. She composed a careful, humbled message. Tyler, I made a terrible mistake. Dubai isn't what I thought it was. It's a lie. I want to come home and explain everything. Can you help me? Please. Tyler's response was immediate, a lifeline thrown into the stormy sea of her despair. Just tell me what you need. Using her emergency credit card, Jessica booked a one-way, economy-class ticket back to Austin. She told no one in Dubai of her plans, secretly packing a single suitcase with her most practical clothes and the few pieces of jewelry that were genuinely hers. Not gifts from Hassan. On the morning of her departure, she left her key cards and the apartment access fob on the pristine marble counter. She wrote no note, offered no explanation. It was over. At the Dubai International Airport, waiting to board her flight, she sent Tyler one final text, a tremor of her newfound fear finally breaking through. My flight lands tomorrow at 10:45 a.m. Terminal 2. Please, don't tell anyone I'm coming back. Some people here are dangerous. Jessica's flight landed at Austin Bergstrom International Airport on the morning of June 15th. Security cameras later captured her clearing customs, her face drawn and tired but etched with a fragile hope. She collected her single, modest suitcase from the baggage carousel and walked purposefully toward the arrivals area, her phone in her hand, likely looking for a message from Tyler. She would never make it home. The next confirmed sighting of Jessica Wilson would be 5 weeks later, when retired fisherman Ray Harmon discovered her partial remains in Lake Travis, the diamond bracelet from Hassan still glinting on her wrist, a final, cruel joke from a universe that had seemingly abandoned her. Her name was Jessica Wilson. She dreamed of a better life, but that dream became a deadly trap. In our next video, we uncover the evidence that shattered a community and exposed the killer hiding in plain sight. This is only the beginning. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss part 2 of The Husband's Secret.